Hey, Jackie.
Hi.
It's so fun to see you in Miami.
I am so excited to have you here. I mean, we're going to have so much to talk about because you're here from New York. I went to New York recently for a little bit.
We've
Lots
literally
to talk
swapped
about.
places almost, but now we're
Yeah.
in the same city.
Yeah.
But I do want to hear about your New York journey coming from the Miss 305 era, back in the 305 now. But I'm so
Yes.
happy we were able to connect.
I know.
And I know you from the Bodega days.
Yeah.
Are you still working at Bodega?
No. So I
Okay.
actually left Bodega, almost 2 years ago. I'm on great terms. I was actually just texting the head of marketing right now. Great terms with them. They're long story short, they were going back into the office full time and I had been remote and I just could not go back into the office 5 days a week. And it was just a lot for me, coming from me leaving my last company because I wanted to go to something more remote. Great terms. They completely understood. We still chat. I love them. Point is, I think I had reached out to Lindsay to host a dating event at Bodega. And then you jump into the conversation. Can you tell me what you do? So what do you do for Lindsay?
Yes. Yeah. Good question. I run her events. So
Oh,
that's
cool.
been my side hustle.
Very cool.
And my inspiration years later now for starting What's Friends of Kayla, which we're here to talk about today. So I've been running her events and we always did an event in Miami every winter because of course New York Jews come to Miami. It's very classic for the winter and a big part of our network is down here in the winter. So we always like to bring a fun event down here. But our first event in Miami was actually because of you.
Oh, yay.
So that kind of got that tradition started. And then I remember you connected me with Olivia, who's now the events person at Bodega. So we did that there last year.
Oh, you did it last year. I forgot you did it
as
last
well.
year. Okay,
Yeah.
amazing.
And now this year we have an event at One Hotel on South Beach.
Oh,
So
very
a little
cool.
different vibe from Bodega. We're in the wellness era over here, even though Miami's a party
Girl,
city.
I feel you.
Yes. So that's how we know each other. And
Yeah.
it's fun that we're
And
reconnecting
we stayed in
now.
touch.
We've stayed in touch over the
Yeah.
years. So
Yeah.
it's really just I just love our story and how we met because, people always come back to people's lives for a reason. And we've definitely had very similar but different journeys in our professional lives and even personal lives. So I want to hear a little bit more about what you're up to today. And who's Jackie? Tell us.
Oh my gosh, who is Jackie? Jackie is... I actually just provided a bio recently, so I'll tell you who Jackie is. She works in public relations. She just started her own agency called Shameless PR.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. It was about time. I think it's like one referral, then another referral, and then you just start to have all these clients, and then you got to make a business. So Shameless PR, I have a podcast with my best friend called Fill Your Cup, which is my pride and soul. And I am a content creator. I focus on body acceptance and fashion and, dressing your curves. And I love it too. And I don't know what I'm going to do if TikTok is done, but, hoping for the best and we'll see.
Wow. You're doing a lot.
So we were just talking about this. We were just right now while we were setting up for the podcast, we both had our laptops out and we're sending emails. And I go, I have to take a photo of this because it's so funny how we're trying to balance so many things. You're balancing 3 things right now.
Yeah. And so are you. And it's a lot. And it's how do you monetize the podcasting piece too? And that's a lot of what we've been talking about as well as this is our passion project and something we see growing, but how do you also make this a source of income? And it's a grind and we're both really hustling and trying to get there, but it takes time and I think consistency.
Right.
And that's something too, I feel like you've been really good at least with the content creation aspect is being really consistent. So what's your key to staying consistent and being so creative in that manner?
It's interesting. I think I go through phases where I feel really creative. Like this weekend, I was really creative, but then I go through slumps where I'm I just don't want to film content. I think when I first started, my thing was hauls. People loved my hauls on a curvy body, a curvy petite body. And I got exhausted. And I think I was shopping so much to the point where I would just shop to then return things. And it wasn't sustainable. I couldn't do that anymore. So I kind of tried to switch away and then realized that wasn't working. So then I tried to go back into hauls a little bit. And I think I stopped caring so much about the numbers. I used to care a lot about is this going viral? And now I'm just if this is helping 5 people, feel better about themselves, then that's making me feel good. And I feel like you probably feel the same way, where when you receive messages about the podcast, I'm like, this is what's keeping me going. Like, I'm not monetizing right now, but it's keeping me going. One day I will.
One day. It's hard.
It's
and
hard.
I think people, think it looks so easy. And I actually spoke to someone today who was like, Kayla, hey, I actually want to start a podcast and I know you just started it. And it's like, it's so funny because I was there 3 months ago asking someone else for the same advice. And the advice that I gave them was the same advice that I heard. It was like, you have to stay consistent because, most people quit after 15, 20 episodes and give up.
Yeah.
And at moments it's hard. I think we're in this culture too of social media and everything is like, we're rewarded with likes and immediate gratification or instant gratification, I should say. And we're so used to that. But like seeing something in the long game is a little bit harder, at least for me. I don't know if you feel that way.
Well, yeah, I think, we made it past that 20 episode slump. Thank God. We're at 55. We are pausing for the holidays, which a lot of people do. So I don't feel bad about that. I think we're very slammed with work that we both decided, let's take a break, and we're going back January. That said, oh my gosh, what were you just saying? How do you get past that slump? I think you have to be consistent. What you just said, you have to, and kind of really think outside the box. Like, we would do so much research on what people were talking about on podcasts and what wasn't talked about, and would ask our listeners, and we would really hone in on TikTok. And I think there's so many moving parts to it that people don't realize. It's not only filming the podcast, which, by the way, I have no idea how to use the microphones and do the recorder. Like, I myself, Jackie Shamus, I have someone that helps me do that. Daniel, who's great, and Ricky, who we've used before. But there's the videos, the clips, there's the podcast description. There's so many moving parts that people don't even realize. It's not just, I'm going to start a podcast, woohoo. It's, you have to it's really a full-time job.
It is. And it's really hard to do this in tandem with a 9-to-5, which I'm currently doing, you're currently doing. You have your own agency. So yeah, how do you find the time to do all of this?
Surprisingly enough, because I work for myself, it's actually easier for me. If I'm being honest, we would film on the weekends because Serna works in office. But if it was, if we could, we would probably film on a Tuesday or a Monday or whenever is a little bit more, maybe a Friday when it's a little bit more quiet. Which, by the way, totally fine with that. I think I've learned to manage my time. But at the same time, I think I started to feel really burnt out because I started editing clips at 10 p.m. because it needed to be posted. It was Wednesday and I haven't posted a clip for the podcast. I have to post a clip tomorrow. It can get exhausting. But in my mind, I'm like, I love doing it. I do love doing it. And I see the potential. So I'm going to keep going. And I think Serna and I really do see that potential where it doesn't take, when the people that give up at 20 episodes don't realize that it's not an overnight thing.
Right.
But it can be. There can be one video, one episode that goes viral. And that's what, grows your audience.
And it's always the video you don't think is going to go viral that goes viral.
Or it's the dating content because we're all struggling with dating.
Right. Why? I wish that wasn't the only thing that went viral on TikTok, but the girls want to hear, even the guys. Honestly, I had guys in my DMs after one of my interviews. I interviewed a trainer. And a guy friend was like, oh, I thought you were going to talk about how to approach a woman at the gym because I would love to know what's a good opportunity to approach someone at the gym. And I'm like, that's interesting coming from a guy because typically it's the women that really eat up the dating content, but there are guys out there that also want the dating tips.
Well, yes. And you know why? I'll tell you they do, because I think girls communicate a lot and we're very open and honest and we tell our friends what's going on. Guys kind of internalize everything. So they're looking for an outlet to listen to kind of give them advice. They don't want to go to therapy. They don't want to do the hard things. Like, I go to therapy every other week. They don't do these things and communicate, and so they're trying to use podcasts as their therapy, and they want the advice from the podcast.
Right. That's actually so true, because even the other day I met someone in Miami. I've only been here for a few days now, but
you've met so many people, by the way. Every conversation, I met someone.
I met this girl. Yeah. No, I'm. We're social butterfly.
Yeah, social butterflies.
I'm new to the city. Like, I'm trying to meet as many people.
And you're only here for 3 months.
A few months.
So that's a good amount of time. But anyway, you were saying,
trying to get involved. But yeah, I met someone and he through a friend, and he was like, oh, I recognize you. Like I've seen your clips.
Amazing.
And I was like, that's
the best
amazing.
feeling.
It's the best feeling, but it also goes to show that there are so many guys out there watching our content that just, we don't know about it, but they're out there. Like you said, they're not going to therapy, but they're out there on TikTok and Instagram viewing our clips.
And you know who's also viewing? People you used to date. I once,
100%.
a couple months ago, I had someone that I used to date respond to, I think we posted some, I don't know what we posted. I think that like we got this many followers on TikTok. And this guy that I used to date responded being like, I'm so proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing, like kicking ass. I'm like, little do you know that I've talked about you on here
on multiple episodes. Yeah.
A few episodes ago. But yeah, I think a lot of people are listening but don't want to admit it or won't tell you.
Right.
And I don't know if you've experienced this yet, but have you told people you've gone on dates with that you have a podcast?
Actually, yes. Some of them. But I'm a little nervous because I talk about, honestly, like dates.
Oh, interesting.
And recently I talked about dad bods, which I would love to get your take on.
Yeah,
and I'm a little nervous for this episode to come out because this guy actively follows me and I'm no longer dating him, but you know, he had a dad bod. And so I'm like, is he going to know that I'm talking about him?
Well, I think it's like very general. I think if you were saying like, I love redheads with dad bods, like it'd be one thing, but I think that's a little bit general. And honestly, almost every guy I've dated has had, most guys I've dated have had a dad bod, most. But what I was going to say something. Oh, what I was going to ask you is, I don't know if this has happened to you before, but I've gone on dates where guys are like, oh, so you like, I haven't listened to your podcast yet. And I'm like, you don't need to, don't worry.
Do that. Yeah,
you don't need to listen to it.
To.
Or I'm like, I don't know that I believe you. I think you actually have.
So do people in Miami recognize you from Fill Your Cup and know that Jackie Shamus has a podcast?
Yes, they know that Jackie Shamus has a podcast, but not really like random. Actually, I have been approached before where people are like, someone's like, I recognize you. Do you have a podcast? And I'm like, yes. But surprisingly enough, I have been recognized more in New York than I have in Miami.
That's really surprising.
Random people, yes.
I wonder why that is, because I feel like Miami is such a smaller, like tight-knit community that you would, especially if your network is here, I feel like your podcast would show more here than in New York. Especially because TikTok is geocentric, whatever that word is.
But I think the people, the New York community that has recognized me has been more the fashion stuff, like Life of the Shameless, not the podcast.
Okay, so it's separate.
Yeah, which is very weird. No one ever in Miami has come up to me being like, I recognize you. It's only been New York. And by the way, it's not like I have tons of whatever, but I'm saying it's interesting that in New York versus Miami.
Right, because this is your real home, although you were just in New York. So I definitely want to hear a little bit about your New York journey. I mean, I don't know about you, but, you know, I'm here in Miami because I've been in New York for 6 years. And, you know, it's nice to get a change. Like, we're young, we don't have ties, we're single. So it's like, you know, when else in your life can you go experience a different city? And I imagine that's kind of how you felt about taking a little stint in New York City.
I had been thinking about it for, I think, 2 years. And I think because I'm the same, I've been in Miami for 6 or 7 years, 2017, whenever that was. And I love Miami. I love my life here, but I'm almost too comfortable and I needed something to kind of shake me up. And I never got that New York experience. And I always to this day regret it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do a month in New York. I can only do a month right now because it's so expensive. I did Airbnb. I don't like the idea of, and I don't know how your Airbnb is, but it was someone who had different units in a building. It wasn't like someone's home. I didn't see picture frames. I don't have people's stuff there. Yeah. So that's what I was looking for. I needed something that was pet friendly because I was bringing my dog. Point is, had the best month, I kid you not, of my life. And I left being like, I'm moving to New York. That's it. I'm moving. And I had a little bit of a depression when I got back. I was really sad to be back. But now I'm here and I'm like, you know what? My life is pretty good here. My apartment here is 3 times the size as it was in New York, but I actually loved how cozy my New York apartment was. Dating was easier there. I got to be honest.
Really?
I do think so. I think people go up to you. This is something that doesn't happen in Miami. People in New York will go up to you at a bar, will talk to you at a bar.
No way, Jackie.
Yes.
I heavily disagree.
Oh, no. Where have you been here? Where have you been in Miami?
Miami, the Spanish culture, there's something about it. Everyone's friendlier in Miami. It's so funny you say that. I came to Miami because I don't think anyone in New York is friendly. I think people don't approach in New York. And I think the culture here is way more open.
You know, I
Is this
disagree.
because we've been in these cities for so long?
I think when I've been, so I would go out like West Village, whatever, everywhere. Soho, like I always felt like guys, it was me and maybe two friends. So I don't know how many people you've been going out with. Like sometimes I think that the group effect really does affect
You need to go
that.
out
You
with
need
like
to go
one
with
or two.
two.
Yeah, 100%
So
agree.
I felt like people would approach us more. And in Miami, I don't feel that. And it might be because I'm going out with bigger groups that we kind of maybe stick to each other. So maybe that's my fault. But I also think the people in New York in terms of dating are a little bit more my type than they are in Miami.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Miami men.
Okay. What do we want to hear?
And the types. Because, I mean, New York, we have the traditional like bankers, we have the finance bros, we have the guys in tech, the consultants, like everyone is hustling and bustling. And that's honestly a big reason that I wanted to get away is because I feel like everyone is in this very like independent mindset in New York City. And it takes a lot for people to break away from that and focus on what I'm looking for right now in my late 20s, which is more of a community, just being around friendlier people. Yeah. And I do feel that in Miami, which is interesting because you're kind of saying the opposite.
You know what it is? Maybe because I've been here so long, I disagree. And maybe I'm not seeing it the way that you do. Because I think when you're in a new city, it's a little bit more exciting and you actually want to talk to more people. But I don't know. I just felt like when I was in New York, I met a lot more people than I do here.
Maybe that's the reason why we need to switch it up sometimes, though, and go for a change, because you do have a new perspective and like a new energy when you're in a different city that you don't have when you've been living that same city for 6 years.
And I also think, and you probably feel this because your time here is so limited, you're doing 3 months, maybe you stay, but because I only had 1 month in New York, I didn't want to be in my apartment. I wanted to be doing something all the time. And I was doing something all the time.
Right.
But going back to the guys and the dating, I don't know. I'm just thinking about the people I've dated here.
Are Miami men just like ratchet?
Okay, so I'll give you an example. I think you are right. So the people that you find in New York are mostly business, finance, like what you just said, looking for a man in finance, trust fund, 6'5".
Like you can find that in New York City.
Easy. Miami, it's like, for example, I'm thinking about someone that I'm texting now and it's not going anywhere, but he works for a music festival, which is
very
so Miami.
Yeah.
So Miami. And I'm like, and it actually just ended. It was like a festival that they had this weekend and they have it everywhere. And I'm like, the most Miami thing. I don't know.
Or sometimes it's like, yeah, I do crypto and I sell jewelry and I also do something else that I can't share with you. And it's like, oh, that sounds sketchy. So how do you make money? I feel like that's a lot of Miami men.
Have you ever dated someone who's
I've never dated anyone, but I feel like even in the last weekend of being here, I've definitely asked people like, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I do like different things. What does that mean? You do different things?
I've never dealt with that.
Really?
Maybe they're lying
I got that one
to
this
me.
Weekend and I'm like, oh,
different things sounds like
extremely
they're
sketchy.
selling stuff.
Right.
Okay.
So it makes me, not trust the guys, but you never know. I think dating is hard everywhere, candidly, and I don't think that necessarily going to a new city makes it better. I think it's all about your perspective and honestly, like your attitude.
I was going to say it's not the city. You can't blame the city. It's my attitude. I think Alana, from seeing other people, actually told me, she goes, what if you bring your New York energy to Miami? And I told her, you know what? You're right. I have to be better about doing that. I haven't been doing that. I think that I'm just like, oh, Miami dating sucks. I'm not going to find someone if I stick with that mentality. It's really what you're putting out, you're getting back. I'm such a believer in like spirituality. Like what comes around goes around. The energy you're putting out is exactly what's coming back in.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And I think that's just, I think we can get down in the dumps about dating. Like obviously it's not easy, but also at the same time, it shouldn't be easy. When you're just looking for, it's fun and we should enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. I've had my ego blown so many times where I'm like, oh, this cute guy, you're thinking about someone, you're like thinking about it in your head and getting all like the fantasy. And then the next day it's like they ghost or they don't reply. And
so many times.
It happens.
Too many times.
Happens to everyone.
I think there's been times where I'm like, I'm so positive this guy and I are going to date. And then
the rug is thrown out from under you.
Sorry, I'm too busy. Sorry, distance. Sorry, the excuses, which,
I know.
I do think, though, and something that I have realized, I think I used to put it on me and say, like, it's a me thing. They don't like me. But I'm like, they're insecure about their career. It's happened to me a lot. Guys that don't feel satisfied with where they are in their career don't want to continue pursuing something because they can't deliver for you.
Yeah.
And like, they think family. They're not dumb. They know the next step. So they're thinking, I can't give you that because I'm not there yet. So they step away. And that's why so many people come back, because they get to a point where they're like, I actually feel secure now and I'm ready. And
now
you're like,
I'm ready.
I'm dating someone else. Sorry.
Right. On to the next.
On to the next.
Yeah. Well, also, you're such a hustler, and I'm sure men are intimidated by that too. Like, you do have your shit together. So to date a guy that maybe feels like he's not in the same place, like, that is intimidating for a man, I think, oftentimes too.
I also, and something that I've accepted is that what I do, so podcasting, content creation might not be for everyone. Like, someone might not like that, and that's okay. And that's not my person.
Yeah.
My mom used to tell me this all the time. She's like, do you think that that's stopping you from finding your person? Like, because I was doing a lot of, I guess what I talk about can be a little uncomfortable, like body acceptance and eating disorders and things like that. And my mom was like, do you think that's pushing people away? I'm like, no, not the right person. The right person's going to love that I do this.
I agree. I don't think that should be a concern of yours, because you're absolutely right. The right guy will accept you for who you are and think it's amazing that you're doing that and putting yourself out there and being your most authentic self for your audience.
Right.
I want to know, like, what, you've been doing with Fill Your Cup. Obviously, you are being really vulnerable on social media. Do you find that attracts the right type of people in your life or the wrong type of people in your life, Jackie?
I think the right type of, it's really interesting because I think the right type of people, because I'll give you an example. I matched with someone on an app, Raya, and he planned a date and then he canceled. And I was like, what's going on here? And eventually, I think he responded to one of my stories, and I was like, I said something sassy like, you could have seen this if you didn't cancel our date. And he goes, I just don't know that we're looking for the same things. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, it seems like you're looking for something a little bit more serious. And I'm just, I'm having fun right now. And I in my mind, I go, how do you know that? And I think it's because the podcast, if you listen to the clips and even look at it, you can kind of tell that I'm not someone to mess with.
You're not fucking around.
Yeah, no.
I actually think that's a really positive thing about having, this podcast and being a content creator and being so vulnerable with where you're at in your life, is it weeds out a lot of people for the better, because unfortunately you do have to kiss a lot of frogs out here to find your person. But I think the right person, again, will be so like proud of what you're doing and really think that it's amazing, because it is amazing.
And motivate you to want to do more, be more, like connect you with people. We were just talking about Lindsay and the way she's, she's just so supportive, because it's like, and it's not the same thing, but like the right people are going to support you and want you to, same with friendships, want you to be better and grow and like help you get there.
Yeah, totally. And with what you're talking about, again, with like body positivity and even just being vulnerable about friendships, life, all of those things, I feel like a common theme that I've heard on Fill Your Cup is navigating your 20s. And how old are you, Jackie?
I'm 30.
You're 30. Did you just turn 30?
No, I'm turning 31 soon.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Not soon, April, but soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming up. First of all, I hear that your 30s is like the best era.
I'm loving 30 already.
Okay.
Like 20s are awful.
That's what I like. No one talks about the fact that your 20s are really hard, and navigating your 20s is extremely difficult because everyone's in a different phase of life. You don't know how to navigate your career, your relationships, your friendships, like dating. It's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? There's no playbook. You graduate college, you've had a playbook your whole life. And then it's like, what now?
Yeah, and it's also like when you're new, when you're straight out of college, no one really wants to hire you. You're so lost. You're trying to figure out what city you want to live in. You're kind of dating for fun just because you're young and want to have fun. You're drinking a lot. I think back to right after college, it was the worst. It was so fun, but also just like, I don't know who that person was. But the amount of growth that has happened since is incredible. And I think about I always tell myself this 21-year-old Jackie who just graduated, 22, whatever it was, would be so shocked to see what she's doing now. Like she would have never imagined. And it makes me like emotional. It does.
Were you a party girl back in the day?
Oh my, was I a party girl? I was the
BC
party
is a
girl.
fun school.
It's a fun school, but we didn't have that like sorority stuff. We didn't have.
There was no Greek life. Okay.
There was no Greek life. Which I kind of liked.
I was just gonna say, I think that's actually
it was
a great
fun.
thing.
There was a lot of like house parties. It was really fun. But I was a crazy gal. I was a crazy, crazy gal. And you have to remember, I'm from Puerto Rico. We've been drinking since we were 13.
Oh, yeah. Oh, girl. You probably brought that Puerto Rican energy to BC. They didn't know it was coming.
Oh, yeah. But I also, by that point, knew how to control my alcohol. So everyone was just like, did
sloppy,
not know how to drink. And I'm like,
chill.
what is wrong with everyone?
Yeah.
But I did have a fun time. But now it's interesting in what you just mentioned about wellness and the We Met at Acme event that's happening at the One Hotel. Like, I am so wellness focused now that it's kind of a turn off to me when in people and dating and friendships and dating, like when someone just wants to be drinking all the time. I can go to dinner and not have a drink. It's so fine for me. I can, I don't need to be, I don't like to. I know it doesn't make me feel good. And like there's other things you can do. You don't have to go out and drink to be social.
I mean, I totally agree. I feel like in college, I definitely had my fun, and I was in a sorority. It was very dating centric, and that's just like what you did in college. But then we graduated, and drinking heavily was still the culture, especially in New York City, where there's not much. I mean, there is a lot to do other than drink, but a lot of the culture is going out and drinking.
Yeah, it's eating and drinking. That's what I told you when I saw you. You're like, how's New York? I was like, it was amazing. But when I got back, I was like, I am not eating or drinking one thing. Also, it's so expensive.
Yeah, it's astronomical. And it's
insane.
Not sustainable, honestly.
No, it's not.
So that's been another thing of being in Miami and just like having space, having the outdoors, and having that balance of wellness and fun here. Because I think people do think of Miami as this party city because people come here for 2 days and go on a bender. But if you're living here full time, I actually find that most people are very wellness focused. Everyone's running, everyone's working out, and that's definitely like where my energy is right now. But getting back to the college days, and I don't know if you felt this way too, but I feel like when I graduated, just feeling that pressure to go out and drink when I really wasn't into that, even as a 22-year-old recent graduate, that was really hard for me. And I felt really disconnected from my college friends at the time who were still in that mindset of partying and drinking 10 drinks on a night out. And I don't know if you've like felt changes in your friendships, but I think that's a really big part of your 20s too, is like people have different interests and either you like maintain those friendships or you don't. Have you like gone through changes in friendships at all the past few years?
Yeah. And I also have I think there's, I used to say this, there's your like going out friends and then there's your friends. So I think it's interesting because I used to be that party girl. So people would always invite me and I started saying no all the time. And it got to the point where now if you ask someone like, oh, Jackie, would she go to 11? They'd be like, haha, I'm not even going to bother inviting her because it's true. Like, I will say like, just invite me and I'll say no. But I like to be invited, but I will say I remember getting upset at some of my friends because they weren't including me in some plans. But it wasn't that they weren't including me. They're like, Jackie, we just know you're going to say no. And I was like, you're okay, fair. But now they're like, we're going to 11. Do you want to come? No. The answer is no. So yeah, I think my friendships have just changed and I try to prioritize spending time with people like Serna, who really does fill my cup. And I just like tomorrow night, I'm just going to her apartment. So I'm getting a spray tan because we have a white party on Wednesday and I'm feeling pale.
Gotta look tan for that white party.
Yeah. So I was like, can I just come over? Let's order food. And when I tell you that fills my cup, no pun intended, more than going out and, drinking and taking shots and doing these things. But I will tell you, like once in a while, I do like to have fun and have a drink and like have a night out with my girls. I do, but don't prioritize that the way that I used to. I think I used to live, and I don't know if you can relate to this. I would work to go out during the weekends. And now I'm like, I cannot wait to like wake up, walk Fenway, get a coffee at Pura Vida, go to Reforming Pilates. Like that is what brings me joy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. Not being hungover on a Saturday morning.
It's the worst.
Like, but it's the best feeling when you're not hungover. It's like, oh my God, I preserved my Friday night. Maybe got dinner with friends, did something low key, and I'm able to wake up
socialized.
and be productive and still be social. Like, there's so many ways you can still be social without drinking and feeling like shit. And I feel like Miami is the perfect place for that. So that is something, New York versus Miami. I will say Miami's winning in that area for me.
And that's why when I came back, I was like, you know what? Maybe I think that the New York life would probably become a little bit too much for me at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's draining. And I think you want to go out and do things, because I will say there's more FOMO in New York than there is in Miami, because you don't want to miss out on something, because you're going to sit at home and do nothing, like in your tiny little studio, 400 square feet.
Totally. Oh my God, the FOMO was so real.
Yeah, and in Miami, I'm like, and I was thinking about the best New Year's I ever had, and I was actually thinking, because everyone's like, "What are you doing for New Year's?" Last year I did Soho House.
Me too. It was terrible. Did I see you there?
Were you there in Miami?
Yes,
I was there. I think we might have texted.
We might have texted. I will never do that again.
I will never buy a ticket again.
That was $200 for no open bar, nothing. The whole venue was bizarre. It was a convention center.
Was awful.
Yeah, you couldn't get an Uber back.
No.
There were food trucks.
Oh yeah. It was actually the worst. And I don't think they're even doing it this year anymore. But that was the moment I decided I'm never buying a ticket again.
Nope,
ever.
Never.
And the best New Year's I ever had was COVID. When all my friends had COVID, I was living in this apartment, and I ordered sushi. I had wine. I made a vision board, and I was asleep at like 11, and I remember thinking, this is the best New Year's I've ever had. And I think I honestly might do that this year.
I'm manifesting a low-key New Year's Eve for us
both. Or
like
someone's house.
Like an apartment party, a girl hangout, pajama party. Like maybe we'll plan something together. We'll collab, because I'm thinking the same exact thing. I don't want to do anything ticketed or high key.
I'm not
Keep it
spending
chill
$200.
this year.
That night we spent like $500 between the ticket, the drinks, the Uber. Yeah.
No, it's not worth it. Got to protect the peace at this stage in our lives. I absolutely agree. The New Year's coming up. I can't believe it's almost 2025. Like, why does every year just breeze by? But I'm curious for you as a soon to be 31-year-old woman who's a hustler, has her shit together. I feel like you just breathe positivity, and that's what I love about
thank you
just knowing you as a person. And like, I'm so happy we're able to be in the same city for the next few months. What are you looking forward to the most in 2025, and what are some pieces of advice you would offer some listeners that maybe are struggling in their 20s right now?
Oh my gosh, things I'm looking forward to in 2025 is feeling more at peace with everything I'm doing, because I think there was a lot of newness this year. Like, I was just starting my business. We were just starting the podcast. I was trying to figure out how to balance, Life of the Shameless at the same time. Like, there was just so much going on. I'm excited to date intentionally in 2025. I think I was not dating intentionally, and I was so focused on people from the past this year, if I'm being honest. And I had a lot of wake up calls. This year was like the year of wake up calls. And I'm excited to prioritize me. I think I was prioritizing a lot of people this year and last year, and wasn't really putting myself first. And if I were to give anyone advice, oh my gosh, in their 20s, I could write a book about this. I would say, number one, network. Your network is your net worth.
Your network is your net worth.
You know this.
We know each other from
And I love what
networking.
you just posted today about just shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot.
Did you just DM her?
I DM'd Lindsay cold on Instagram, and she replied to me.
You're the perfect example.
Everyone should shoot their shot. Your network, as you said, is your net worth. It is everything, and it will come back to you. Think about just even us. I met you years ago through throwing a random singles event at Bodega, and here we are on each other's podcasts.
Yeah.
That's just so fucking cool. And that happened because we stayed in touch. Always stay in touch with people. You never know where they could lead you.
Yeah, it's really true. So network. Number two, leave the toxic job. It doesn't matter if you've been there for less than a year. There's this myth that you can't be, you have to stay. Leave. That's not helping you. Get out, because what that's going to do is ruin your mental health even more. And I have been there. And number three, I would say really clean out your friend group. Really start to realize who's a true friend and who isn't, because you're going to realize through, what I always say, tell someone good news and see how they react. because there's some people who are so intimidated by you that are jealous, that don't want the best for you. Like the people that want the best for you are going to be celebrating you, going to be like lifting you up, going to be so excited about you, going to be posting about your podcast, like are going to be doing all of that. So really start to listen to how people react to good news. There's so much advice, but those are my top 3. What about you? What's the 3 advice? What's the advice for you?
Wow. I mean, a lot of what you just said, I obviously really resonate with, but if I'm changing and if we're going a different angle, I would say a big theme in my life this year has been quality over quantity. And I think it's really hard to think about a lot of the relationships that have changed in my life, whether that's friends, boyfriends, just people coming in and out for different reasons. I think, what's the phrase? There's a friend for a lifetime.
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying, but I don't know what the phrase is. Oh, yes.
This is going to fucking kill me.
But I didn't like the video.
There's a friend for a reason, a lifetime, and a season. A season, a reason.
And a lifetime.
And a lifetime. We're just going to go with that. We'll have
Daniel. I think that's what it is. A season, a reason, and a lifetime.
Anyway, I think just accepting that things are the way they are. And of course, we can look back and, be self-aware and understand maybe where our shortcomings were. But there's always room for improvement. And I think just like reevaluating where I was last year to where I am today, like I am proud of myself in a lot of areas, but yeah, just really continuing to surround myself with people that lift me up and being okay with maybe having fewer friends than I used to have. And like, that is okay. We're getting older, priorities change, and just being in that acceptance phase of life, I think is important.
Yeah.
It's hard to come by, but being able to get there and accept where, we've come, I think is really important.
I love everything you just said and totally agree with it.
Thanks, girl.
Thank you.
Last thing is someone told me that they're going to buy me mic stands because they don't like the way I hold my mics. And I know you hold your mics the way
we hold our mics. And let me tell
I'm holding
you,
them.
And I told you this, the first 2 episodes we had mic stands and they kept falling and we had to keep pushing them. No mic stands. And I also feel like it just feels more authentic and like genuine with your hands.
Yeah. What would we do with our hands if we had a mic stand?
Know.
They'd just be awkwardly
I use my hands so much to communicate that it would be, people would be overwhelmed. Yeah. Like even now I'm like using one hand. People would be overwhelmed. So it's probably best.
Okay. Well,
no mic stands.
Yeah. Please don't buy me the mic stands. I'm going to keep holding the mics. I know they don't look amazing, but.
No, I actually love it. And I think a lot of people, Jake Shane, Octopus Lover.
He likes them?
He uses them? He doesn't use mic stands.
Okay.
He holds the mic.
If Jake Shane uses this, I'm going to keep it up.
Jake Shane.
Coming for
you, Jake.
You
agree.
So Jackie, where can people find you and listen to your podcast? Please share.
Okay, so my handle on TikTok and Instagram is Life of the Shameless. And you can watch and listen to Fill Your Cup on Apple and Spotify.
Amazing.
And find us on TikTok too.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to hang in Miami.
I know.
Thanks for coming on. See you this week.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm so used to starting night. Cheers.
Cheers.